Imagine a place synonymous with childhood joy. A cavernous Toys R Us, alive with the buzz of fluorescent lights, the cheerful jingle of commercials, and the excited chatter of families. Now, imagine a man living within its very walls, not a customer or an employee, but a phantom fugitive who has built a secret world for himself in the forgotten spaces behind the drywall. By day, he is a ghost. By night, when the last employee has locked the doors, the entire store becomes his kingdom. He rides bicycles down empty aisles for exercise, survives on stolen baby food, and watches the oblivious world through a network of repurposed baby monitors. This is not the plot of a Hollywood film, though it soon will be. It is the most bizarre chapter in the life of Jeffrey Allen Manchester, one of modern America's most ingenious and unconventional criminals. His legend is built on 3 pillars of astonishing audacity: a 2-year reign as the Roofman, a meticulous thief who rappelled into over 40 McDonald's restaurants nationwide, an escape from a state prison so clever it defied belief, and his surreal 6-month existence as the Phantom of the Toy Store. The story of Jeffrey Manchester forces us to ask compelling questions. Who was this man? Was he a brilliant tactician who treated crime as an engineering problem, a master of social engineering, capable of embedding himself in a community while being the state's most wanted man? Or was he, at his core, simply a man seeking a quiet place to hide in plain sight? This account explores a unique criminal mind, one that valued process, design, and infiltration over brute force, making him a fascinating case study in the annals of American crime. To understand the man who could vanish into the architecture of a retail store, one must first understand the boy who took apart the world to see how it worked. Jeffrey Manchester's journey from a quiet suburban kid to a master criminal was not a sudden turn, but a gradual assembly of skills, psychological traits, and a unique worldview that saw every system as a puzzle to be solved. Born in 1971 and raised in a middle-class family in Sacramento, California, Jeffrey Manchester showed none of the typical markers of a future felon. His was a stable, unremarkable upbringing, yet from an early age, he was different. He possessed an intense, almost obsessive curiosity about the mechanics of the world. While other children played with toys, Jeffrey disassembled them. Radios, toasters, and anything with a circuit board were methodically taken apart on the living room floor. His father, a machinist, recognized this innate talent and nurtured it, providing him with tools and old appliances to tinker with. In school, he was described as intelligent but emotionally distant. He was a keen observer, more interested in understanding systems, be they mechanical or social, than in participating in them. This detachment allowed him to see the world from a different perspective, not as a series of relationships, but as a collection of interconnected parts. With little interest in college, Manchester enlisted in the U.S. Army, where he found a home in the elite 82nd Airborne Division. For a man of his disposition, the military was more than service. It was an advanced education in the very skills he would later weaponize. As a paratrooper, he mastered discipline, logistics, and operating under extreme pressure. He learned rappelling, weapons handling, and the art of meticulous planning. It was during his downtime in the barracks that a crucial shift occurred. While other soldiers relaxed, Manchester studied blueprints, not military schematics, but civilian ones, restaurant layouts, utility maps, and commercial building plans. His focus had pivoted from military objectives to the vulnerabilities of civilian infrastructure. He wasn't just learning how buildings were constructed, he was learning how to deconstruct their security, how to move through them unseen. He was beginning to look at the world not as a soldier, but as an infiltrator. On the surface, Manchester attempted a conventional life. He married at 20 and became a father to 3 children. However, this domestic facade seemed to exist in parallel to his secret internal world of systems and schematics. His marriage ended in divorce in 1999, right in the middle of his burgeoning crime spree. While it's impossible to pinpoint a single catalyst, this period suggests a growing disconnect between the life he was supposed to live and the one he was meticulously designing in the shadows. The control and precision he found in planning heists may have offered a compelling alternative to the unpredictable complexities of personal relationships. In November 1998, Jeffrey Manchester launched a criminal campaign of such unique character that it would earn him a nickname and a national manhunt. His targets were ubiquitous, his methods were surgical, and his demeanor was so unnervingly calm that he became a legend long before he was identified. This was the era of Roofman. Manchester's brilliance lay in his dual-pronged approach, which kept law enforcement perpetually off balance. He operated with 2 distinct, yet equally effective, methods. The ghost, his preferred method, was the silent, after-hours infiltration. He would conduct surveillance, often for days, before selecting a target. Under the cover of darkness, he would ascend to the roof, drill or saw a precise entry point, and lower himself into the building, often into the ceiling space above a restroom. There, he would wait, sometimes for hours, with monastic patience until the morning shift arrived and the daily routine began. Only then would he retrieve the cash from the office or safe and vanish, leaving employees to discover the theft with no signs of forced entry. The gentleman robber. When stealth was not an option, Manchester would opt for direct, yet controlled, confrontation. He would enter near closing time, armed but astonishingly polite. Victims consistently reported his calm and apologetic tone. In one of the most famous details of his MO, he would often instruct employees to put on a coat before ushering them into the walk-in freezer, a bizarre act of consideration in the midst of a felony. As one McDonald's manager later recalled, he was really polite. He was apologizing. He said, "Would you please, ma'am, get on the floor?" This psychological duality made him a nightmare to profile. Was he a non-violent cat burglar or a confident armed robber? The answer was both, and he chose his method based on a cold, tactical assessment of the situation. Manchester's greatest insight was not into security systems, but into corporate efficiency. He realized that fast food chains, like McDonald's, in their quest for standardization, had created a blueprint for their own demise. Franchise locations across the country were built from nearly identical architectural plans. This uniformity, designed for operational efficiency, created predictable weaknesses. He knew where to find the rooftop hatches, the composition of the drop ceilings, the standard locations of safes, and the predictable cash handling procedures of the morning and evening shifts. He wasn't breaking into unique fortresses. He was exploiting a single, endlessly repeated design flaw. He turned the brand's strengths, consistency, into his primary weapon. From 1998 to 2000, Roofman became a phantom haunting the fast food industry. He is believed to have committed over 40 robberies in at least 9 states, from California to North Carolina. He took only cash, wore gloves, and left behind no forensic evidence. The sheer geographic scope and the consistent MO quickly escalated the case from a local nuisance to a federal priority. An FBI task force was assembled to hunt a man known only by the moniker the media had given him, Roofman. For 2 years, Jeffrey Manchester was a ghost. But even the most meticulous planner can make a mistake. His capture, however, was not the end of his story. It was merely the intermission, a period of quiet observation that would set the stage for his most audacious act yet. In May 2000, while in North Carolina for Army Reserve training, Manchester broke his own cardinal rule. He got greedy. In a single day, he robbed 2 McDonald's locations just miles apart. After the second robbery, an employee triggered a silent alarm. Police swarmed the area, and Manchester, attempting to reach his getaway car parked discreetly at a nearby church, was spotted emerging from the woods. After a brief chase, he was apprehended. His response to the arresting officers was telling. With no sign of panic, he calmly remarked, "You guys did a real good job today," a sign of a mind that respected the game itself, even in defeat. Sentenced to a hefty 45 years, Manchester was sent to Brown Creek Correctional Institution. To the prison authorities, he was a model inmate. He was quiet, caused no trouble, and dutifully worked his assigned job in the prison's metal shop. But Manchester was not being rehabilitated. He was conducting his next phase of surveillance. His job gave him a vantage point on the prison's shipping and receiving operations. For 4 years, he watched. He studied the schedules of the delivery trucks, the routines of the guards, the blind spots in the security protocols. He was once again disassembling a system, looking for its weakness. On June 15, 2004, Manchester put his 4 years of research into action. His escape plan was a masterpiece of low-tech ingenuity. Contrary to some early sensationalized reports of him hiding in a trash compactor, his actual method was far more clever and bespoke. Using materials from the metal shop, he constructed a small plywood platform, which he painted black to match the undercarriage of a truck. He also gathered pieces of cardboard to further conceal his body. Timing his move perfectly, he slipped out of the workshop and affixed himself and his platform to the chassis of a large delivery truck that was preparing to leave the facility. Clinging to the dark, greasy underbelly of the vehicle, he held his breath as the truck rumbled towards the main gate. He passed through the guard checkpoints, his body hidden from view by his simple but effective camouflage. It was an incredible gamble, relying entirely on his engineering, his nerve, and the guards' predictable routines. Once clear of the prison, he dropped from the truck and simply walked away. After hitchhiking to Charlotte, Jeffrey Manchester was a free man, ready to begin the most surreal chapter of his life. A fugitive on the run needs a place to disappear. But Jeffrey Manchester didn't just want to hide. He wanted to create a new world, a self-contained ecosystem where he was in complete control. He found his sanctuary in the most unlikely of places, a sprawling retail complex in Charlotte, North Carolina. Manchester's genius for seeing the unseen potential in architecture led him to a perfect opportunity, a recently closed, vacant Circuit City that stood directly adjacent to a bustling Toys R Us. While scouting the empty electronics store, he discovered a small hole in the shared wall connecting the two buildings. For anyone else, it was just damage. For Manchester, it was a doorway. He crawled through and found himself in a forgotten stairwell of the toy store. He had found his new home. With meticulous care, he set about transforming this hidden space. He covered the hole in the wall with a piece of plywood, which he painstakingly painted to resemble the surrounding cinder blocks, rendering his entrance virtually invisible. Inside, in the dead space under a stairwell and within the walls, he constructed a secret apartment. It was a bizarre monument to his resourcefulness and personality. He furnished his den with stolen goods, Spider-Man bedsheets for his mattress, posters of Star Wars and Superman for the walls, and a small basketball hoop for amusement. He even lined up toy models of Yoda. He survived on baby food and children's snacks pilfered from the store shelves, and managed to rig up electricity and even root later for his basic needs. When the store closed each night, Manchester became the king of a silent, colorful kingdom. The entire Toys R Us was his personal playground and gymnasium. He would ride bicycles up and down the long, empty aisles for exercise. But his most critical tool was for surveillance. He stole baby monitors and placed them strategically throughout the store, creating a sophisticated ad hoc CCTV system. This allowed him to track the movements of the cleaning crews, overnight stalkers, and security guards, ensuring he could move about his domain without ever being detected. He was a ghost in the machine, a silent observer living off the grid in the heart of consumer culture. After months of total isolation, Manchester's desire for human connection, or perhaps his confidence bordering on hubris, drove him to take his greatest risk. He decided to re-enter society. He created an alias, John Zorn, and began attending Crossroads Presbyterian Church, located just across the parking lot from his hideout. He quickly integrated himself into the community, presenting himself as a kind, curious, and helpful man. It was at the church that he met and began a romantic relationship with Lee Wainscott, a single mother. To explain his lack of a home or a conventional job, he spun a tale of being a secretive government agent, a story that accounted for his strange hours and need for privacy. He was, by all accounts, a model boyfriend, romantic, sensitive, and wonderful with her children, to whom he often brought gifts of toys, stolen, of course, from his home next door. For 6 months, Jeffrey Manchester lived this impossible duality. By night, a fugitive phantom in a toy store. By day, a beloved member of a church community and a devoted partner. Every meticulously constructed world has a point of failure. For Jeffrey Manchester, his downfall was not a result of a single mistake, but of the immense pressure required to maintain his double life and the escalating boldness that came with his success. The walls he had built for protection would soon become his trap. Living in a de facto warehouse of valuable goods, the temptation to stage one last major heist proved too great. Manchester devised a plan to rob the very Toys R Us that served as his sanctuary. In preparation, his actions became more erratic. He robbed a local pawn shop to acquire a firearm and, in a truly bizarre act, burned down a dentist's office where he had recently received treatment, presumably to destroy any records of his existence as John Zorn. On December 26, 2004, he put his plan into motion. He robbed the store at gunpoint, but the heist was not as clean as his previous work. 2 employees managed to slip away and call the police. Manchester was forced to flee with the cash, retreating back to his hidden lair in the adjacent Circuit City as sirens wailed in the distance. The robbery put Manchester squarely in the spotlight. Surveillance footage from the store was broadcast on local news, and the face of the robber was now public. The members of the Crossroads Presbyterian Church watched the news, and several, including his girlfriend Lee and the pastor, had the same chilling realization. The wanted man on their screens was their friend, John. The police, now armed with a name and a face, descended on the area. When they searched the vacant Circuit City, they discovered his incredible hideout. The scene was surreal, a makeshift home filled with toys and posters. And in an almost cinematic twist of fate, investigators found a single, crucial fingerprint. It was on a DVD case for the movie Catch Me If You Can. This detail, reported by police, was a perfect, ironic coda to his life on the run. Police now faced a dilemma. They knew who he was, but not where he was. Their best asset was the woman who believed she was in love with him. Investigators approached Lee Wainscott and revealed the devastating truth about John Zorn. Heartbroken and conflicted, she eventually agreed to help them. The final act was a carefully orchestrated trap. On January 5, 2005, Lee called Manchester, asking him to meet her at her apartment complex to say a final goodbye. He agreed. As he drove to meet her, he stopped at a convenience store to buy her flowers. When he arrived at the apartment complex, a SWAT team was waiting. He was taken down without a fight, his incredible run finally over. The man who had outsmarted prisons and lived in walls was ultimately captured by a simple human desire for connection. Jeffrey Manchester's story defies easy categorization. He was not a criminal driven by desperation, addiction, or rage. As one criminologist noted, he didn't steal out of desperation. He stole out of design. He was a technician of crime. His motivation seemed to stem from an intellectual compulsion to understand, infiltrate, and defeat systems. The crime itself was secondary to the process. The money was just a way of keeping score. In an age of cybercrime and digital footprints, Manchester stands out as a uniquely analog ghost. His tools were power drills, plywood, and patience. His methods relied on physical observation, social engineering, and a deep understanding of the built environment. He slipped through the physical cracks in the world, not the digital ones. The ultimate irony of his story is that the man who could build a fortress of solitude for himself, a master of detachment and observation, was brought down by his own venture into the human world. His desire for community and romance created the very attachments that led to his identification and capture. He could break into any building, but he couldn't escape the fundamental human need for connection. Today, Jeffrey Manchester is back behind bars, serving out his lengthy sentence at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina. His current expected release date is December 4th, 2036. One is left to wonder what becomes of such a mind when it is finally, and perhaps permanently, caged, a brilliant architect of deception with no more systems to defeat. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Deadly Details for more deep dives into the minds behind the crimes. Till next time, stay sharp and stay curious.